Morning, everyone. Early morning on day 2. We're talking about brand collaborations and the fact that although they're not new, there seems to be a lot of them at the moment. So we wanted to speak to some people who've been working in this area for a long time and find out what the secret of success is for collaborations when there's so many in the world. So let's start off with Tom and David introducing yourselves. Tell us who you are, a little bit about your role, 1 minute each, please, and how Gen Z view your brand.
Okay, good morning. It's nice to see you all. Thank you for coming down. So my name's Tom Rains. I'm the marketing director at Beavertown Brewery. My role in a sentence is, I guess, I look after anything to do with marketing. So that's everything from core branding to product to research to insight to social to PR to events to experiences to bars and everything in between those things.
Fun times.
Yeah, fun times. And then I guess, how does Gen Z view our brand? Well, I guess people can tell me that, right? Like, obviously we do lots of research, qual and quant, and all the things you expect marketing departments to do. But I guess the point around Beavertown is we're trying to do something very different to established, traditional, and maybe not that interesting beer brands.
Go ahead. Hey, David.
Hi, good morning. So I'm David. I'm currently a marketing consultant working externally for Bang & Olufsen and also a young jewellery brand called Atlas Accessories. I started my career wanting to be a racing driver, so going around in circles, normally right, but you're looking at a failed racing driver right now, and quickly found my way into marketing, working in marketing automation for some leading tech and telecoms brands. But spent the majority of my career working in premium and luxury audio with Sennheiser and Bang & Olufsen. How does Gen Z view Bang & Olufsen? Well, I think we've got some really, really sort of credible talking points and momentum within the brand, and I think we really hopefully they'll see that we embrace and engage with the audience at several levels, which hopefully we'll touch on today.
I mean, Formula One is so... Oh, I don't need a mic, actually. Formula One's so hot at the moment. It would have been the perfect time for you to be doing your racing driving. Okay, let's talk about the reasons to collaborate. So if you think about a brand, either of your brands, or if you each speak about why you would collaborate with another brand, what's the reasoning?
Yeah, sure. I think the most important thing, or one of the most important things in this space is you have to have a reason to do it to add value, right? I think what you often have is you've got very well-established brands that essentially need to create new news, right? So if you're a ketchup that's been around for 150 years, 200 years or something, there's not a lot of new news, is there, right? So actually, by collaborating with another brand, another person, that might add value to the conversation and make it, relevant for your current audience and relevant for a younger audience to get them into buying your product, that seems like a fairly sensible strategy to be able to get people to talk about your product that's been around for 100, 200 years, whatever, right? From a Beavertown perspective, I guess we're kind of unique on the basis that, we were born out of craft beer, and craft beer has always been very pro collaboration. So whether or not that's us and another brewery or us and a brewer or whatever it might be, it's always been very much at the heart of the brand. And I guess what we've done over the last couple of years, deliberately as part of our strategy, is try to do interesting, unique collaborations that people wouldn't expect, right? Because if you look at a brand like a tomato ketchup, right, you recognize it instantly. So when they put a twist on it, you're like, oh, it's that thing I already know doing something different. When you've got a new brand like our brand that has much lower awareness, right, you don't get that. You don't get that instant recall. So therefore, we have to do interesting things, maybe with people that are bigger than us or people that are different that you might know, and just give it that kind of twist to get people talking, essentially, right? And I guess my last point on this is, what marketers really don't like to admit the truth in is that, like, people don't really like advertising that much, right? And I spent a lot of time, quite a lot of money, doing a lot of advertising to try and convince you that maybe you should like it and therefore you should, love our product. Now, of course, I'd argue that my advertising is better than some, right? So therefore, of course, you're going to love it. But ultimately, things like collaboration takes the conversation away from being advertising, being broadcasted at, into a conversation of, oh, fuck, look, they did this wacky thing or this cool thing or that's different, right? It's a different type of conversation. So ultimately, as a marketeer, as a marketing director, it gives me a different type of conversation that I can have outside traditional advertising.
I think that's interesting because there's so many different types of collaborations. So I'm ex-Adidas, I'm ex-Diageo. We did a collaboration for Captain Morgan and Wes Morgan back in the day, which was huge and amazing. I think people still talk about it today. And that was out of my team, in-house, early in-housing, whatever you want to call it, because I'm a practitioner at the end of the day. But that was really fun and it was really different to other collaborations, and that always makes that noise that you want, but it's got to be credible, right? Or else it does not work. It's got to be credible, it's got to be smart, it's got to be clever, and it's got to have a reason.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between that and luxury? Because luxury is a different animal when it comes to collaborations. Talk to us about that and the reasoning behind it.
For sure, yeah. I think the example just given there by Tom, I think we have to be a little bit, we don't have the opportunity to be quite as playful perhaps as the Marmite and the ketchup examples. But I think for us it's about coming together with a brand with shared values, which we'll talk more about, but where we can come together and do something amazing and authentic. And as Tom said, it's giving us a talking point, but also establishing and re-establishing our position together and being able to reach each other's audience. If we know we've got similar audiences, especially with the shutdown of third-party cookies these days, it makes the job of reaching new audiences very difficult. So I think if we can partner with like-minded brands with those shared values, then you've got a really credible opportunity. And I think there's a level of earned trust you can get with the right collaboration. So not only you're introducing yourself as a brand to the other brand's audience, but also because of the way they've reached you and your message and your product offering, there's this sort of immediacy of trust because of where the messages come from.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm so old that actually back in the day when I was doing youth culture, still always will be, I guess, in my mind. But we did collaborations because we had no money. So me and all our friends, we all collaborated together to join those audiences together. And it was awesome, actually, because it was really early days of collaborations. And so you go through. But, we're inundated. So how do you choose a partnership or a collaboration that is going to cut through? Because, you could do them all day long. What's the difference?
Yeah, I think the point around shared values, right? And I think the point about adding value. So are these two partners that look like they should go together? Or conversely, are these two partners that absolutely shouldn't go together, but it would be really cool if they did? I think that's quite an interesting twist on it. But you've got to do something that adds value, right? Like, we're all smart consumers and we understand things that it's just fucking marketing bullshit, right? Like, we understand it. So therefore, you've got to add value. You've got to add something interesting to the mix. So I guess from my perspective, we, there's two significant collaborations we've done recently. One was with Queens of the Stone Age, the rock band, where we did a music video for them. And that's pretty mental, right? Because why would a brewery be making the music video for, Queens of the Stone Age, who were headlining Glastonbury at the time? And
it's Queen of the Stone Age.
I know, it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. And that was because really I looked at our marketing mix and it was like, here's a line of outdoor, here's a line of, what this year would be TV. We've just gone on TV. If you, go to Instagram, like it, some positive sentiment, always good. You can do that. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? All right. So there's a line of TV, there's a line of, whatever, right? It was all traditional stuff. And I was like, but this isn't interesting enough, right? Like, we need to do something that's going to get people talking. So I said to my team, right, we're going to do a music video because we've got a big music strategy. 50% of the room were like, this is fucking mental. Like, this is never going to happen. 50% of the room were like, okay, cool. And kind of everyone sort of thought we'd get to a level with it, right? Which is like, I don't know, Radio 6 C playlist level. There's nothing wrong with C playlist level, you know. But talked to a couple of people, you know, life's about who you know, right? And then we ended up talking to Queens of the Stone Age, and we kind of went from there. So that was very different because, you know, do we share the same values as Queens of the Stone Age? I don't know, right? Like, probably not. But it was something you just was so unexpected because we took our visual world and took their song and put our visual world together that it therefore kind of worked, right? So I think that's important. And another one, which I won't go into detail on because we might touch on it later, is a collaboration with Calm, which is a campaign against living miserably, who are the mental health and anti-suicide charity. And we did something called Open Up, which is a bag of crisps. And, you know, that classic pub thing where you go down with your mates, you get a pint of neck oil. It doesn't have to be neck oil, but it could be neck oil. It's good, right? It's nice. Drink it. Not reasonably. Don't over-drink it, right? And you sit down with your mates and you open up this bag of crisps, and inside are basically just little conversation starters to kind of open up. You know, who would you call if you needed some help and things like that we wrote collaboratively with Calm. So different types of collaborations, and for me that's important. Can I do something that adds value, that either we share values or is very different, that's going to get people talking?
Yeah, I mean, that add value, I'm just going to add, I worked on the Guinness Carnival collaborations, which was incredible and a bit of a moment for me because I go to Carnival every year. But when I was at Guinness, I'm a big archive fan, I'm a big storyteller. Dove into the archive and realized that Guinness had been selling Guinness to the Caribbean and to Africa since the 1820s. It's absolutely part of their culture. So my friend who's Jamaican was like, I didn't even know Guinness was Irish. I thought it was Jamaican. My mum makes me Guinness punch every Sunday. I'm like, great. So we did a collaboration with Carnival and Boiler Room to be able to stream from 8 of the original sound systems and tells the story of Carnival and the celebration in London, etc., connected completely to Guinness. So that connection, but showing up in a different way, was unbelievable. And, you know, it's one of those things where you go, could it work, should it work? But if it works because it's connected straight into the storytelling, it's a beautiful thing.
It's authentic.
It's a beautiful thing. And, you know, you had Guinness on the streets of Notting Hill, you know, in the culture, from the culture, by the culture. It was amazing. It was awesome. Tell us about something that worked for you. Give us an example.
Yeah, I think to answer your first point, it's the way they come about are quite organic actually, which is really exciting, because in a world where you're typically very planned in your roadmaps and marketing and advertising, it's really nice when these things come about. And I think we're quite fortunate. We get approached quite a lot by brands, and that could either be through personal networks, past employment, shared agencies, etc., maybe brand ambassadors. So I think it's really nice how these sort of come to the table. Of course, there's a level of framework to it. You know, is the audience fit right? You know, are the shared values right, as we've touched on? But I think someone much wiser than me once said, if you can start by writing a press release, and if that reads well, then there's potential in the partnership. I think that's quite a good starting point.
That's good.
Getting it back to sort of basics. But so I think a few examples. You know, globally at the moment, we've got a Formula One partnership with Scuderia Ferrari, which, you know, it's what it does is transcends lots of generations, and it gets the conversation going about our brand. But at a more practical level, we're able to do some really fun things with it and allow people to engage with our brand. So, for example, a national e-racing challenge where you can come and have a head-to-head with one of the Formula One drivers. Just as one example.
You must be loving that.
Yeah, it's great fun.
Bit of a dream, yeah.
I didn't win. But then I think, you know, beyond that, we do a lot around music, of course, and film. So most recently we partnered with Studio Canal and the Back to Black film. Now, some of you know Amy was really passionate about up and coming unsigned singer-songwriters. So we put on a national UK unsigned singer-songwriter competition. So entering originals tracks for a chance to win a week's masterclass at Metropolis Studios. We had a fantastic live final in London, and we've now got our winner of that taking an amazing opportunity, a real career step change opportunity with Amy's sound engineer, Stuart Hawkes, and the full team at Metropolis. So a great sort of stepping stone there. But on a little bit broader spectrum, we're running a series of programs, including music lates and art lates, where we give our venues as a platform for up and coming, art creatives effectively. So doing some stuff, directly with the creatives, which is, real hair on the back of your neck, tear in the eye moments, genuinely, and they're really well attended. So I feel like we're on a good momentum there.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to let go of the guidelines a little bit, right? How scary is that in luxury? Tell us. Give us one story, anecdote of something where you had to twist it. I mean, when I did and re-released Stan Smith for Adidas, I changed the tongue graphic, took the graphic off and recreated the same style of graphic for 100 different people who loved Stan Smith, which was quite different for them. So playing with those key brand assets can be scary, but can actually be super effective. Luxury is harder with that, I'm sure. Any anecdotes around that?
Yeah, you put me on the spot there. I think it's tricky, isn't it? You have to. There is that element of unknown. So I think it's you certainly these series of music lates and art lates. We weren't sure how they were going to be received, but they've been really well received so far. And I might have to defer that one and come back to you.
Come back to us. Okay, so you're getting loads of, and I did this when I was in-house as well. You get loads of emails. Can you do this? And can we do this? And can we do this? And, here's a good idea. How do you decide what's the right collaboration or partnership to do? Is it connected to an awesome opportunity? Is it connected to strategy? How do you decide? Because I didn't realize until I went in-house that it has to be connected to the brand strategy. It can't just be a cool thing you want to do, right? So how do you make those decisions if someone approaches you for something?
I guess first off, if we're being completely honest, if someone emails me and I don't know who it is, I don't read it.
There's one for everyone. They're not looking, people.
So
Let me tell you.
sorry to the vast people, and that's not like arrogance, although it probably is a little bit. It's just like I'm busy, I'm busy. So that's the honest truth of it. In reality, it has to be part of your strategy. So you have to have an overall element of your plan for the year or a 3-year plan or whatever that you think that a collaboration is going to add something to the overall mix, or you think it is going to be the overall mix, right? So as I said before, I look at the media plan, I look at the PR plan and the communication plan for the year, and I'll get a feel if I think there's an opportunity for us to add something to that mix that might be a collaboration. Now, some of them can be really small. We've done lots of really fantastic PR activations, which is about collaborations on pieces of art and, things that happen in pubs. They're not like a headline thing, but it's playing into a community who are interested in it. And then you get much more headline things like open up the activity we did with Calm, or the Queens of the Stone Age stuff, or some of the beer collabs we've done, which is much more at the top of the overall pyramid. But ultimately, it has to be part of your strategy. Now, dependent on the business that you work for and where you are in your life cycle, if there's a wicked opportunity that you think is going to work, just go for it. Like, if it's not part of the overall strategy, you've got to take those serendipitous moments. But if you're at a certain size and there's a certain structure and process to how you want to do things, then I'd suggest, and how we would do it, is to bake it into the overall strategy that that you want to do something in Q3 or Q4, whatever, and have a feel for what it is. So as I said with the Queens of the Stone Age example, I wanted to do something that was more currently, more culturally interesting than just advertising, right? And we have a whole strategy on music. Therefore, in my mind, I was like, well, it would be interesting to do a music video because we're a very illustrated brand, right? So you smash all those things together, it makes sense from a strategic perspective, and then we can go out into talking to people and trying to make it happen.
What about you? Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think we, it's realistic that most of these opportunities come in partway through your financial year. So, it doesn't always land in the planning phase. So you've got to look at them and consider, do they fit with the overall sort of campaign narratives at that time? Is it something you've literally got to make way for and bring to life because it's too good to miss? So, but I think, as Tom's mentioned, coming from the other side in your planning is if you want to reach audiences through different mediums, then you've got provision of essentially for creating some brand partnerships and going about, researching what that could look like. So yeah, it's a sort of, but I think in reality, a lot of these things come in, during your sort of active period. So
that's a really, really good point, actually, because what I found when I went in-house, which was quite surprising, and I didn't do it within my department, was spending all your budget before the year. Because I'm like, I don't understand how to do that because it doesn't make sense, right? Opportunities come up all the time. So, of course, you have to spend a certain amount of budget, of course, but there has to be a flex budget, I feel. And that's something I really fought for in both when I was both at Adidas and Diageo, to be able to do that, just because I had a 10-year company before that and understood how, culture works, the world works, and things happen and opportunities come up. Do you do that? How do you do your planning, your budgeting and planning for these kind of opportunities, or is it way in advance?
So I guess our overall planning budget cycle is sort of starts in September and is concluded before the end of the year, so you can start the following year. I'll take the overall pot of money and I will work out with my team and with our agencies what we're going to spend above the line, what we're going to spend below the line. We spend a fortune on pint glasses, by the way, the most stolen pint glass in the country. If you want to steal them. I'm totally all right with theft of our pint glasses.
Photograph them.
It reminds you of the brand every day, right? I can't pay to get into your cupboards, right? It would be weird, wouldn't it, right? You come down in the morning, there I am, right? Be odd. But the pint glasses are a thing that can make you remind you of the brand. So I work that all out, and I will allocate all of it, every single penny of it, into a pot somewhere, but I will know that there will be elements of the plan that will change, or there will be certain pots of money that maybe we move around a little bit in year. And then there's always that race at the end of the year to try and make sure that all the dots link back up again and everyone's happy.
One of the things I've literally vocally talked about for ages is that pressure at the end of the year to spend that last bit of money, so you do another weird ad that no one cares about, right? I'm like, use that excess money up front to experiment in new and different things.
Yeah.
And that would be the ideal way. I'm like, take that ineffective spend that you have to do in order to get your budgets exactly the same for the next year. We all know that last, let's do another billboard. It's like, no one cares about that last billboard, but actually that budget, or some of that budget or whatever, could be used by design at the beginning of the year to have that flex.
Yeah,
potentially.
We front weight, and obviously because we're a beer brand, the summer is a big thing. So actually, by the time you get to Christmas, there's not an awful lot left, to be honest with you. So we don't necessarily have that fun. But in other roles, I certainly know what you're talking about.
David, what about you in terms of what could be done differently in order to be able to activate in year?
Yeah, I think you mentioned provisioning for some unplanned activity, right? But I think also to your earlier point about doing things because there isn't huge budgets. So collaborations don't have to cost the earth, of course.
No, exactly.
We've had some really great activities, like with Diageo, with Johnny Walker and Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO, where we partnered with him on his first live Diary of a CEO, where he was the subject rather than one of his guests. So it was turning it on its head, and that made for a great evening. But also we had a real nice product collab with Johnny Walker, which was great fun as well, and was beneficial for us all. So
it's a fun brand, yeah.
Those things can come about in the year, and you can run with it.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think people should. That's what makes it interesting, and etc. We've got 6 minutes left, so I'm going to ask one more question, and then I'll open it up to the audience. So, what's the secret for success, and how do you measure if it's worked or not?
The secret for success, I think, is know your brand from top to bottom, know everything about it, but know it not only in a rational sense, which is we sell this product at this price in this way, but know it in an emotive sense, right? Why do people love it? Why do people not love it? And then be plugged into culture, right? Because ultimately, brands that are culturally relevant, that are both rational and emotional, will always be more successful than those brands that aren't, right? Because if you think about a brand that you really love, it goes beyond the pure function that that brand does from a product perspective, right?
I might have to get you in my book called Culture-Led Brands. Just going to plug that right there for next year. Anyway.
That's
Because
fine.
we deal with culturally relevant brands, yes.
So yeah, I think that is the single most important thing. Know the brand inside and out, the emotion, the heart of it. Why do people give a shit about it? And if they don't, find a way for them to, and then play in culture.
David, success and measurement.
Yeah, I think, one of the things I would say is don't guess it. If know your brand and your audience perception as well as you can. But if you've got any doubts, then ask. I think doing a fresh survey. It doesn't have to be a huge one, but you're working with your agency or just having a small panel to get some real sort of fresh perspectives on what's needed or what's good and what isn't. So that's a good starting point always. I think coming back to that earlier point I made about the press release is looking at where do you sort of nailing down what you actually want to achieve, even if it's in theory. So then you've got a good handle on what good looks like.
Yeah, for me, whenever I did any work, I actually had only one KPI, and that KPI is, would anyone give a fuck to share it? That's it. If they don't, or it's not good enough for that, don't do it. There's no point, literally. Would they care to share? That's your KPI. It's not even would they care to talk about it. Would they care to share it? Because people will not share something if it doesn't impact them positively in some way. And that doesn't have to be worthy. It just means it's impacted them if it's creative, if it's fun, if it's unexpected, surprising. That's the KPI. And so when I was both at Adidas and Diageo, I was like, you can sit here with all your KPIs, but if people are not sharing it, what is the point? You're wasting your time, you're wasting your money. So that one thing for me, and in terms of measurement, for me, it's all about soft and hard metrics, right? So whenever we do any projects, because it's done properly and with care, the hard metrics go above and beyond the benchmarks, but it's the soft metrics, the community messaging you and going, oh my God, that was amazing, or whatever. That for me is where, for me, that's success. Anything for you that was like different to the traditional measures of success for you?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with everything you've said. I mean, I'm not from a world of beer and FMCG, right? So when I joined that world, they measure everything. Right?
That's what I'm saying.
Like
exactly, like crazy, the data. You're
like eye tracking on the shelves, so they measure everything. But ultimately, it goes back to my previous point. You need to understand the brand, because otherwise it's just a bunch of numbers, right? And they are very useful, and you should look at data. You should rely on data, but you still need a feel for it.
Soft.
Yeah, soft. So I agree with you. Ultimately, I want people to talk about my brand and to be interesting and relevant to them, right? And there's lots of different ways I can do that, or try to do that. Traditional advertising might be one, collaboration might be another, PR activity. Stuff that happens in pubs for us is obviously quite important, given that's the majority of where people see and purchase our product. I just want people to care, right? And the more obsessed you get with the numbers and the data, the harder it is to really think about how can people emotively connect with this brand. Now, that's not to undermine the data, because it's incredibly important, but it's not the sole answer. Right?
Obsession is unbelievable with it. What about you, David? Anything last bits to add? And then we want to give at least a minute to the.
I think for us it's authentic and memorable, and of course. Yeah, sales is one measure, but I think for us a great proof point is when other brands or individuals come to us off the back of a great collab or a great activation, which that's a real turning point.
Absolutely, I think that's the soft metrics. That it's not about measuring in the traditional way, but someone coming and going, I want to work with you because that was awesome is brilliant. Actually, I think
exactly, and I often think of it myself as. With collabs, like a model choosing the brand they align to, you've got to look at who you're going to align with. Is it going to get you a step forward? How's that going to play out on the game of chess board after that? So it's looking at the bigger picture and not just the next move. So having that in mind as well.
Yes.
So that
Nice ending. I'm going to put it out to the audience. Here's one right here. Do you want to? Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Really interesting. I'd love to know who you think is smashing it in terms of collabs. So forget your brands, forget your own personal careers.
Heinz.
So
Heinz.
with
everything that they're doing at the moment, or Elf Beauty's killing it. Actually.
Yeah. And
For me, at least.
gents, who's your Gold Star Award this year, Paul?
I don't know really, if I'm honest. I think the Heinz Bloody Mary stuff is interesting. There's a lot of brands doing clothing and shoe brands and stuff. I don't know. I mean, I think it's more interesting when it's not product led. And I don't see a lot of not product led stuff. It's like, we've got a product, they've got a product, let's put these products together to create another product. And I think we're at risk of it just becoming a bit of a marketing me too, really, which is like, oh look, whoever Heinz's competitors are, like, oh look, Heinz have done this, so we should do something, and it's gonna actually kill collaborations, right? I think
Exactly.
Some of your reference points earlier. When I was a kid, there was like a big thing about mashups came out, right? Which was like, there was one which was like Crowded House versus Snoop Dogg, right? And there was this record company in Watford called Go Home Productions, and they sort of really led it, right? And it was wicked, and no one had really done that thing before, and it was so grassroots, and it was so raw, and it was great. I think to me that is far more interesting to put a twist and in a completely different way on collaboration than a big product and another big product makes a big product. It's cool, right? Like, it's fun and it looks nice, but I don't care.
Yeah, tricky one to answer. I think for us, we want to support some of the claims we make up front, or how we engage with people, and we're making some real interesting moves. For example, like modular product, where after 10 years, if your phone can't communicate to it, then you or I can replace the chip, and then you don't have to throw the product away. It can last another 10 years. And we've also got turntables which are 50 years old, which can work with our current day speaker, and there's no one else really doing that. So I think Collab for us is perhaps getting certification with a credible body to show that this is authentic, and we're able to create that longevity, and actually you're a sort of custodian of the product. So maybe not the most exciting collab up front, but we're there to support with something really credible and authentic beneath the top line. So maybe
whatever works for your brand.
Philippe, maybe with their slogan is a great one, inspiration for us. You're never an owner, you're merely a custodian, I think, of the product. Yeah, but
Cool. One last question. Someone here? Oh, you have to run all the way across.
Hiya, my name's Ibby. Just wanted to, you've been talking all about collabs and like what you like and what you don't like, but I want to know, if you could pick any brand that you wanted to work with, who would that brand be, why? And seeing that you're talking about KPIs with regards to people sharing it, when it comes to the bottom line, what do you think when it comes to?
So the examples that I mentioned before, if people care about it, they'll buy it, right? And I saw that personally myself. Stan Smith killed it, basically. Within a year, it had become Footwear of the Year and became one of the best sellers. So it's always about the bottom line, because if people care to share it positively, other people see it positively. You know what I mean? So that's my personal thing, but you can answer on the others, on who you'd want to collaborate with.
Yeah, I think I think it's an interesting question. I mean, the example that we did with Queens of the Stone Age, I think, is probably, up there for me, because it totally takes the brand into a completely different way of doing it. We have a big sort of clothing is a big thing that we do. We had a pop-up store around the corner, just by Rough Trade. It's there in August if you want to come down. So like clothing is a big thing. So we're really pushing into doing clothing collabs. And there's obvious brands that people collaborate a lot with in that space, which I think is interesting. So I think things that are culturally relevant, like clothing, is definitely more interesting for me than product stuff, as I said. And then the measurement stuff, I'd just say very quickly, which is your top line measurements and your bottom line measurements, although you never get a straight line between them, they're still really relevant. So you just need to see what triggers the differences in your top macro, and then things like shareability.
And it can also be one of a campaign, right? So it's not, doesn't necessarily always have to be the only thing that you do. So I think it's quite a hard one to answer directly like that, but I think it can be made up of different things as well. We're out of time, unfortunately. Hope that was interesting. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you so much, both of you. Tom, David.
Have a lovely day.
Thank you.